Hi, welcome to the Healing Mama Show. I'm Sharon Showmaker, and this is Brittany Hobbs, and together we are the Healing Mamas. And this is our 7th episode. So if you've been following along, thank you for investing in your time and investing into the conversation and the community and the connection that we're over here working on building. Oh gosh, today we had just wrapped up a conversation about all kinds of stuff, and we joked like maybe we should have just hit record in the very beginning. But I think what came out at the end was, how are we as mamas who are committed to our own self-healing, committed to a calling of stepping into our gifts and our zones of genius, and how to support others and inspire and encourage and provide tools and support to other mamas and other humans who are on a self-healing journey. How do we do that all and find the balance and weave in and stay present and stay available to our tiny humans and to our partners and to ourselves and to all the other parts of our lives that are beckoning at us and wanting our attention as well?
Yeah, it's a lot to balance. And I know you and I are both exploring different ways of how to do that. And one of my initial things has been to hold more of a structure for myself, right? Of penciling in, or really not penciling, but putting it into my phone. An alarm of, okay, this is going to be the time that I work on my business, or even with my kids, like this is the time that they can expect that we'll have our morning snuggles and story time before I transition into my business so that I honor them. And even before that, waking up and, okay, I'm going to do yoga and get into my breath and into my body and ground down so that I can hold the space for these next few containers, right? So myself, and then my children, and then my business, and then the rest of the day kind of unfolds based on how all the rest of it went. But even with that, it doesn't, I hold flexibility within that structure, so that I can ebb and flow and adjust to the needs of whatever's coming up. And one thing that came up this morning, right, is that I was doing my yoga and had an idea of how the morning was going to go. But then my daughter was all up in my business, crawling under me on the yoga mat. And she pulled out a brush and was trying to put my hair up into a ponytail as I'm moving, in and out of downward dog and doing all kinds of twists. And I finally had to pause and be like, hey, this is supposed to be my time. And then you and I will have our time. And that's when she shared with me how much she was missing me from a busy last couple of days, and that she just really needed some time with me. And that's where I had to pause and really look at, okay, this is going to nourish me too. And so I set the yoga aside and instead shifted gears into snuggling her right then and moving into a dance party. And that was able to light me up in a whole different way and get me into my body in a way that I wasn't expecting to first thing in the morning.
Yeah. I think that flexibility is key. And I think there's something that comes before, like being able to be flexible, right? There's a level of presence, there's a level of like being already in a nurtured state that is going to allow you to not flip the switch on your kid and just be like, this is my space, like I just need this time, to like being able to observe and to at least have space and be flexible to have a conversation and learn that about what your daughter's behavior was kind of like indicating, what it was asking of you, so that you could then adjust and be flexible within that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that reflection. And yeah, it brings up so much on we talk about boundaries, but they're not hard and fast, and living from our body and our emotions and just taking it all into account as we cultivate our wellness.
Yeah, no, and I think it's setting an example for them too, to like allow for like them to make space for things to go slightly different, right? Because if we're very rigid in what we expect of our kids or what we're modeling, then that's possibly something that could ripple out and have an effect on our children when they're in the middle of something, and possibly you need to interrupt them or you need them during that time. There's this like collaborative ebb and flow of like, oh, okay, this is that sometimes we do have the ability to pause and then come back to what we're doing, or like at least like feel into the what this relationship needs in order to contribute to its thriving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it it doesn't mean that there might not be a little bit of frustration still under the surface when things don't go our way, but it's kind of just, again, things don't always go the way we want them to. And to breathe through that and to have this surrender of, oh, but I might get actually what I need. And we joked around about the song, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And that was something that happened this morning. I was able to have a really fun, playful dance party first thing this morning that brought out more of my playful side when it's so easy for me to get too serious and too focused on the way I think things should go. And it also, as you were sharing, reminded me of what you shared during a story earlier of how our body remembers everything. So each choice and each decision that we make is either honoring ourselves and it's adding to the trust that our body can have in us, or it's going against it and demonstrating to our body that it can't trust us to fully be there and support it. Um, so anyways, I love
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
body always remembers everything.
The body does always remember, and usually that is like tied to um kind of a trauma related lens, but someone said something, and it might have been Shayna actually, where it was in regards to being silly and playful and having fun and being happy and being joyful. Like the body remembers those things too. The body keeps score of those memories, and they're in there as well. They just aren't they're not activated as far as like a survival mechanism, like the reason why the trauma and all the negative like experiences are like anchored in is so that we prevent ourselves from going through that out of like means of survival. Where yeah, I guess there's two parts. Like, so if we're wanting to like thrive and step into thriving, like how do we go about like activating and tapping into the body's remembrance of like the playfulness and the joyfulness and the happiness and the silliness and the play? And so it did you have something to say? Because I was gonna like segue into, it reminded me kind of the same thing. I had a couple different situations because I've been hyper focused on tending to and nurturing the business branch, the vocation branch of like the tree of wellness that that kind of is my guidepost for how to access thriving and access my like pinnacle of wellness, and focusing on these like work stuff like creating in Canva, and focusing on like the landing pages and the content and stuff, and really just being like all of my attention feels like that's where it's going. And because it's things that I love, it's actually really easy to allow it to like consume and like overflow into all the other parts of my life where I could just be in my creation space all day long. And I know like that's going to create messes for me to clean up in the future. There's other branches and other things in my life that need to be tended to. And so yesterday, my son asked me if I wanted to come out and play, like hit baseball, hit some balls with them, or like with some wiffle balls. And there was a part of me that's like, oh, I have work I need to do. There's things that I want to, there's a deadline I'm trying to like hold myself to. And so again, like there's this boundary of me creating this space and being able to work, but also realizing like, okay, someone is asking me to go be with them. And so I said yes. And we hit some balls and that was fun. But then this like wind rushed through and it like blew the trees where it shook like all the other leaves that were either like ready to fall or that had been like caught like from another wind and kind of just rested in those trees. And it blew them. And all of a sudden it just like showered down like leaves. And as it showered down leaves, my son was like, let's go, let's catch them. Let's try to catch them. And falling leaves are actually really hard to catch. I don't know if you've ever tried, but they're actually really hard to catch. Like they look like they're coming right into your grasp and then the wind blows slightly and they end up somewhere else. But he caught like the first leaf, and the witnessing the like pure joy and magic of my children and my family and myself connecting to like, oh, that was a slight, was that a rumble or was that a car? Oh no, I think that was a rumble of like thunder. And then like the breeze come by just in that one spot, the leaves falling, him catching it. And then it ended up with us like running around and trying to catch leaves, going up into the hill, being in the grass barefoot, trying to catch these leaves. And I didn't really have time to do that, to be honest. Like I had other things that I needed to do and that I wanted to do. But what I really like needed was to be there with my children, experiencing this, connecting with nature, like crossing off like that feed two birds with one scone energy of like me and nature, me nourishing my relationship with my boys, me like experiencing and witnessing the childlike remembrance, like that, activating those memories of being a child and what that feels like. And those was like, maybe I didn't get what I want, which was to like spend more time like finishing up and like doing the landing page, but I got what I needed, that connection, that like remembrance, that like witnessing my child as they get older, where they're not always, well, I hope they always find the magic of catching a leaf. But
Mhm.
yes, back to the song. You may not always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Yeah, I love that story. And yeah, I feel like we both have children that are at those ages that is so magical and playful, and they really want us in their space and involved in everything that they do, and that's not going to last forever. And so yeah, just continuing to find that balance of achieving our callings and our goals, but balancing it with this really, bless you,
Thank you.
it's really beautiful space that they're in, because I don't want to miss out on any of that, and I have all of this that I'm really feeling called to accomplish. And it's just a delicate dance and juggling act and balancing act.
It is. And it reminds me like there's like there is that balance of like wanting to be available and with our children. I mean, my heart loves them so much that I just want to soak them up all day long. And there's also this, I've had tastes of this experience where like we have 5 people in our family, and there's moments where we're all just ebbing and flowing as if we were possibly like 5 roommates just living together, where there's no correction and there's no squabbling and there's no stopping the bickering, or there's just this sense of everybody's self-governing themselves. Everybody's like kind of diving into their own interests. Everybody's kind of pitching in with like what needs to be done. And I love that. Like there's, as our kids get older, like I get to experience this where I'm like, yeah, there are moments where I'm going to spend a lot of time like working on the computer or doing things that light me up. Like and while my children are also off doing things that light them up. And it's such an important part. There was another, gosh, I don't know if I can remember the whole like story of it, but it kind of was along the same lines where I had um I was working again most of the day doing like stuff on my computer, stuff that lights me up, stuff that is like filling my cup up. And my husband had left to take the kids to class, and one of them was here. And I was like, oh, I should go and like, there was a like a longing, like a niggling of like, just this word, of like, do I go and spend time with him? And I looked over and he was just sitting in the swing, just content, not needing me, not needing anything. And I decided to like go back and like go and work on the computer a little more and just give him his alone time, because with 5 people in the family, like you often have a hard time finding those little pockets of silence and alone time. And I did that. And I went back out and peeked on him later, and he had gotten into his own world of like throwing this hoop and like throwing it all the way up a hill and letting it like roll back down. And again, it's like, how do we find that balance of like, was I'm sure amazing things could have come out of both. Like if I would have stopped what I was doing and I would have gone and spent time with him, magic could have unfolded. And by me choosing to like stay aligned with what I was doing, magic unfolded as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the message is in that story other than like, it can go both ways, that flexibility of like not guilting yourself because you're not available to your kids, trusting that when they do have that free range space, and when you aren't available, that they'll find things that they wouldn't have found if you would have come and filled that space for them. And so, yeah, I guess just the reiteration and the re-emphasis on like, all of this is such a dance, finding balance, holding boundaries, being flexible, allowing space, being available. Like there is no right or wrong answer. And I guess like, yeah, like what it's coming home to is that sense of like being so present with yourself, being so trusting and surrendering, having that discernment, and like knowing that good and wonderful things can come out of everything that is existing in our life.
Yeah, and I was gonna circle back to what it was, the energy behind that, right?
Mm.
Of whichever choice you made, was it a, oh, I feel I should do this, or
Right.
oh, I really want to go and do this. And I know it's a balance that I walk with my kids. I think there's such a driving force in our society, and I have been guilty of this, of feeling like we constantly need to have our children entertained, whether it's by something else or whether it's by us. Um and so through me cultivating my business is really been a lesson in life about me learning to allow my children to figure out how to be with themselves and how to entertain themselves. And both of them have different personalities, and their response to that has been different over the years and recently also. But it's a practice going on in our family right now, is as I chase what I desire, letting them fully start to investigate what excites them and what they want to dive into. And I think it's really important. But again, it's looking at, there are codependency tendencies that can come up. And yeah, it's just all everything we can learn from and take deeper. And it's all about the self-reflection that we bring to it, and what energies are behind it. And so I know that's definitely something I'm working with within my family right now, is supporting my now little 6-year-old on finding ways to entertain himself, because he's always had his older sister, and he's always had me and his dad, and so he once he gets into it, he's fine and he disappears into his own world, but he fights it for a good while and really tries to convince everybody else to join in on it. But it's really important to allow him to get bored and or frustrated or whatever it is, so that then he gets more and more comfortable with more quickly diving into what lights him up on his own and how can he be with himself and explore his own inner world.
Yeah.
It's not easy though, because it'd be easier for me to just be like, okay, what do you want to do? But then I'm losing sight of everything that I wanted to do and what adds to me being lit up and having more to give to them after, I've filled up my cup with my hopes and dreams too.
Yeah, no, that's I'm glad that you brought up, because I did want to. It wasn't like a should. I know that I said it that way. Like I don't get much time with him like by ourselves. He's such a little just love muffin. He's amazing. But he's 6 years old. He's been under the love and care and direction of his older brother and his older sister. And so for him to have alone time, like I was definitely being present with like all of it. I guess that's really what it is like as you're making decisions and following, like being guided, what do I do next, what is my next step, and in any moment it's really like holding the whole picture is like, yes, he would benefit from me pausing and coming and playing with him, and he would also benefit from this time alone. And so yeah, it is. There's really no clear cut answer other than like tuning in and listening. Like, okay, I felt it clear. Like, I think he would be best served to just like have his quiet. Like he was just sitting there, and so it was. Yeah, no, it was really awesome to poke my head back out and then just see him carried away in his own little game. And then that also creates this space of like coming back together and sharing about like the things that you did during the day. I know that like when we spend so much time together as a family, you miss that aspect of doing things separately and then bringing that to the table and sharing that. And so those moments are really sweet to pour into and to collect as well, like to gather around. And I know that we'd sometimes do the rose and the thorn. Have you heard of that? Like,
I was just about to bring up.
nice. Yes.
I was waiting. I was like, oh, that's the next thing I want to bring up.
Yay, perfect. Yeah, no, go. Yeah. So like, and those, yeah, go ahead, explain it just in case anybody isn't aware of what the rose and the thorn is.
Yeah, just as coming back together, I learned it from a dear friend of ours. And I don't know where she learned it from, but um that like when we get together for dinner in the evenings, my family goes around and we share our thorn, our bloom, and our bud. So our thorn being, something that didn't go, and I don't know if that's where you were going with it, but where we
I've
share.
never heard of the bloom and the bud part. We just do the rose and the thorn. So I can't wait to hear about the bloom and the bud.
Yeah. So, and I learned it from Lyle visiting
Okay.
her family when I came down to Costa Rica.
Love
Um,
her.
the thorn being, what didn't go the way you wanted it to go, or what didn't go well in your day to day. And then the bloom being what really lit you up, or what did you really love about your day? And the bud being, what are you looking forward to tomorrow? And it just
Amazing.
opens up, because we used to do gratitudes, and um doing the thorn, the bloom, and the bud just really opened up this whole new window into everybody's life, right? Of seeing, okay, what didn't go well and what went great and what are you looking forward to? And it gives you more insight into their internal world and what they like and don't like or encountered and how they handled it. And it opens up further conversations, and it's been really fun and something we all look forward to.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we just do the rose and the thorn. So I'm excited to bring in the bud part. But I noticed with that practice, like it really allowed, like, because at first it was just like say one thing that's the rose, but then we just kind of allowed it to unfold, and to listen to my children like rattle off several things that happened in their day, or be like, I can't even think of like a thorn, it just helps us all to like really savor that life is good, like that we like, because it can feel overwhelming and stressful. And we were taught like that you're carrying a sword, like wielding this sword, trying to strive towards like creating this certain life, and you're swimming upstream on a lot of the things. And so that energy can feel heavy, and it can feel depleting, and it can definitely overshadow like all the amazing things that are happening. And I think one time I felt called to like turn that into a song, and so I wrote lyrics of a song, and I could have easily written them to be like really like focused on all the negative things, but when I focus on all the little lovely and positive things, and maybe we don't do them all the time, like, but knowing that that is what like it can, like that is what our family container is, that our family and our life consist of these things. But yeah, it just allows you to remember amongst all of the mundane monotony, like challenging moments of motherhood and cultivating a really intentional life, to just like, yeah, just remember the roses, the blooms. And I'm going to definitely start doing the buds as well.
Yeah, and it sparks that co-creation mode too, right? Of, oh, I'm really looking forward to having this be a part of my day tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to circle back to, as you were going through the story with your son, you talked about holding the bigger vision and decisions coming from that. And I loved you bringing that up, because I think as mamas, we are holding so much, and we're taking in so much information, and we're perceiving all that's going on around us to make every one of our decisions, and so much goes into that. And I know that there's a lot of sayings and things that circle around, the health and the wellness and the vitality of a mama really dictates the health, wellness, and vitality of her family, just because of the space that we hold and the container that we hold and that we build and create with our family.
Yeah. No, I feel like, I know we've talked about it before. It's like almost like radio stations and radios. Like as a mama, we are like the radio station, what we are broadcasting out into our field, into our family, into our home, into the environment. Like that's being picked up on by all the little antennas of our children, of our partners, of our pets, like of the just like the energy that is within our home, the invisible workings that, all of that is deeply impacted by how we show up. And yeah, I think it's just like, I think it makes me like, how do we tend to that radio station frequency? How do we be mindful of what we're putting out into the world? And it's not even the world. How do we tend to like the frequency that we're putting out into our home, into our space, into our family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it takes a whole lot of reflection and perception and going deeper into how we hold and cultivate wellness in ourselves to then do all the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah, no, and I think it like comes back. I've been really trying to find like what's at the crux, like what is like at the foundation of like how do you hold the bigger picture, like how do you tend to the wellness, like all of those. And I think it starts with like being present, like this, in order to even get a gauge on what is your vision, in order to even like have an idea that your actions and tones and energy like impact and imprint like your family and your home. Like I think it starts with like this sense of like deep presence with ourselves and with like our vision, with what we're trying to cultivate, with where we're at, like on the journey, like how far we have to go and how far we've come, you know, that presence. I think you said something like a couple days ago when we were talking, like putting like attention and intention into what we're working on or what we're cultivating. And I think in order to even like work with the attention and the intention, like you really have to slow things down and to be able to be really present. And I know we've talked about things before where as we're setting intentions or as we're creating offerings, like what we're creating or the intention we're setting or holding, like we're going to get like initiations into them. And so earlier this week, as I was like creating something around presence, um, I'll share it shortly, but it activated in me this heightened awareness of like, how present am I? And once I like tapped into this barometer or this like gauge of how present I am, and then also like realizing how many things I miss, whether someone is talking to me and sharing something that I really want to experience, that I really want to give my undivided attention to. And at the same time, someone's doing something to, say, the dog that needs to stop. I literally have to like stop this moment and correct. And then I can't let it go. And so, like, having that conversation of like, wow, I'm trying to be really present and I'm noticing that it's hard to be present and give my undivided attention. Or, gosh, my son was asking, I noticed he was playing a drum beat. And I was like, that was a really cool drum beat. And he tried to go back and like recreate it and he'd like play it. And I was supposed to be listening to like figure out if, oh, was that it? But I noticed like 2 or 3 times I fully got lost in my own thoughts. Like I was not listening to him try to recreate it. And I'm just like, so many moments like that, I am noticing where I want to be present, but I'm actually not fully present. Like again, where I've been in creation mode. My son came in again, flexible boundaries. There's times where I want the door locked and no one coming in when I'm recording. But there's other times that I really do want them to see me in my zone of genius. I want them to see me in my creation mode and working mode. And so like that flexibility of boundaries. And my son came in and I was still doing things on my computer. And he was like, Mommy, close your eyes and hold your hands like this. And I was in the midst of doing things on my computer. So I only had partial presence with him. I could hear the words, but I didn't stop and turn and observe what he was saying. So he went back out and I closed my eyes and put my hands like this. And then he came back in and he was like, no, Mommy, not like that. And I opened my eyes for just a brief moment. I could see him holding a jar of flowers. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to put my hands like this. And so he came in and he gave them to me. And I took them and just like so sweet. And I put them on my desk. And then I realized I hadn't put a new card on my desk. So like I want to, okay, if I'm pouring into my business, how do I weave in these pockets of like presence with my children? And so I was like, here, take all my decks and you want to go through them and find me a new card to pick out. And so he went through one deck and was like, nah, he had them all laid out on the bed. And then he didn't find any in that deck. And he laid a whole nother deck of them out and found me one card and I put it there. And just being like, if I wouldn't have been flexible in that boundary at all, like I would have completely missed my sweet babe bringing me some flowers. And then the sweeter, like carrying that out, I think my daughter was sitting next to me later in the day and I was like, look, he brought me these flowers. And she was like, oh, he went and gathered those with daddy. And I was like, oh, like I got another piece. Like these are all things that I'm wanting to cultivate, all things that I want more of. And if I didn't have those flexible boundaries and that presence to like really be observing like big picture what was happening, I would have missed a lot of the details and the proof that things were working towards my big vision, that thing that can get lost sometimes, that thing that we can lose sight of, or that doesn't feel like it's coming together at all. That was a lot.
I love all of that. Um, boundaries, flexibility, honoring presence. And yeah, going back to the initiations and the cultivating presence and using life as our mystery school of it showing us, really where we are, and every interaction, everything we experience in life being that reflection back of what are we really holding, what is our presence, what is our inner world doing. And I know for me, something that I have been finding again in trying to cultivate more stillness and more presence is whenever life starts to feel really, really busy and chaotic, is a reflection of what I'm feeling inside and showing me where I'm lacking on the big picture. And it comes back to, how emotionally grounded am I? How am I starting my day? How am I practicing that stillness and presence so that I can hear what my body has to say to me and be with that before it has to come out in my inner world of it feeling like the rat race and everything's spiraling everywhere. And sometimes I can be really stubborn about it, and there can go days where it feels like it's that chaotic until I'm like, it clicks and I'm like, okay, like the only way this is going to change is if I slow down and if I take time to go inwards and have that quiet to hear what is coming up that needs to be heard and seen and had time spent with. And then once I do that, then it's pretty amazing to see my outer world just calms down, and I feel like I can flow through it much easier. But it's really easy to get caught up in, the chaos and the speediness of modern day life, and to feel like, okay, if I just get this done, and if I just catch up with this, and if I do all of these things and speed up to match it, that eventually we'll get caught up. And I'm learning. I've heard it out there a lot, but to actually experience it and put it into practice, it's pretty incredible kind of what can shift outside of us once we see what's going on inside of us that's drawing that energy to us.
Yeah, and I think like what stands out is that so many of us know it up here, right? We've taken the course, we've sat in on the calls, we've read the books, like we've listened to the pot, like we know it, but have we like fully embodied it? And like what's preventing us from like fully embodying? Is it resistance, like time wise, or are there blocks within ourselves, or like stories or subconscious underworkings and underpinnings that may prevent us from like fully embodying it? And so I think both you and I are on a mission right now to really fully embody the pieces and the wisdom that we're noticing aren't fully integrated and aren't fully embodied, and what we can do. And I think that's where we're creating from, is like, if we need this, who else could be served by practices, rituals, rhythms, routines, ways that we can really take all of that stuff that we've been gravitating towards, all that stuff we've been taking into our, little minds, and then how do we really like drop it into our bodies so that we're existing and showing up this way, like effortlessly, like it's just second nature, that we catch ourselves, oh, it's chaotic. Instead of a few days of chaos, we're like, okay, let's drop into our bodies and figure out what's going on and what needs to shift. And so yeah, I love that. I think that's been something that I've been deeply desiring as well, is how to fully integrate and practices and support tools that would allow me to access that level of thriving with deeper ease. Or, and I I want to say like faster, but not in like the busy faster, but like as in like it's just like we're it is us. Like that's just how we move through life. Like we've got the wisdom fully embodied. We're like rooted in all of that we've taken in, and we operate from that like really rooted place. So like rising up rooted, you know?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and bringing in, like you said, the rhythms and the cycles of the earth and the moon, and looking at the astrology and how all of that is shifting and supporting us into stepping into a new era or writing that new book, right? That we're leaving this old chapter, this old book behind, and we're stepping in to write a whole new one, and integrating all of these practices and grounding them into our body is what is going to actually allow us to step into that new era, this new way of being, this new, everybody's talking about the age of Aquarius, and that doesn't just happen, right? It's all about the actions that we take to make that happen. It's all about us tuning into the energies and tuning into our body that holds all of the wisdom to get us to that next step. But we have to cultivate the presence, we have to put in the practices, and we have to take action from those places. We're moving into an era that we're stepping away from this super mentally driven, logically driven way of being that we've been for so long, and we're moving towards a time and an era where we're going to be moving from our heart space and our body, and that's what's going to be the shift in the world. But that doesn't just happen overnight, right? We've had an entire lifetime of living from right here. And so how do we pull together all of those practices that I know every one of us here listening to this conversation, we've been doing a lot of learning and intellectualizing, and how do we integrate that into our body and our lives so that we are fully empowered for 2024 and starting that whole new era, that whole new life and way of living from a place of true wellness and thriving and vitality. And that feels really exciting to me. And like you said, we're co-creating from that space, and we're going through the initiations of fully being in that space, and I'm feeling really lit up and excited for what's to come.
And I'm excited because like we really do have the tools. Like if I were to map it out, really, it's like, okay, tap into like your heart's deepest desires and set your intention from there. And unfortunately, so many are walking this earth so disconnected from their deepest desires. They don't even know what they want. Their basic needs aren't even met. So how do they even access their wants or their desires? And so like really anchoring in some practices and some healing that would allow people to tap into that wisdom. And when you've set the intention, then you begin like, how do you take aligned action from there? And then you map out these aligned action steps. But what you'll notice is that there's resistance to doing some of these aligned actions. There's some things that are going to be challenging. They're going to stretch you out of your comfort zone. And then, so how do you deal with what comes up when you're ready to take an aligned action, but you're feeling the resistance or the block? And it's like going into your body and getting the wisdom. What stories there? What is living there? What is alive inside of you, of me, that needs to be processed so that the aligned action is like something that I'm not stalling myself out on. Like I think that's why so many people set like New Year's resolutions and then end up at the last week of December and like I didn't do anything that I had set myself out to. Is like we're not taking the action. And then when you do overcome that hurdle, when you do figure out what is preventing you from taking that action, then you take that action, and sure enough, like that's where the initiation is happening. That's when you're going to like be presented with even more opportunities to like hold a mirror to yourself, to heal the next layer of the onion that's ready to like be looked at. And yeah, and that it happened to me because you're saying as we're moving into like the new era or the paradigm shift or the age of Aquarius, and I know that change and moving into things comes with like fear. Like there's change and uncertainty, and right now I'm at a spot where we're getting ready to move and we needed to leave our the place where we've been living. And so I found a place. It looks lovely. We're really excited about it, but it's, it's 45 minutes away. It's in a new little town that probably only has like 100 Spanish speaking people in it. And our Spanish is not perfected. And like the fear, like where this will be the first time that we've moved away from the beach. And as long as I have been in control of my distance to live in proximity to the ocean. So like, I'm really stretching myself, and the doubt creeps in, like, is this the right move? Is this where we should be going? Is this like, gosh, like, is it safe there? Like there's so many things that are alive. And so I just was with myself. I'm like, you have every reason to be scared and nervous and uncertain and worried, and like to honor that all is part. That's not something to be like squelched down. Like those are things to be like highlighted and held and made space for, and then celebrate the times that I've made other big huge leaps and look at where I've come to. And then I got out a big piece of paper and I just reminded myself, like, this is just a stepping stone. This is just a little lily pad for me to get to the next iteration of my life, whatever that looks like. If I'm trusting that this vision that's been put on my heart, that I'm like, have set intentions around, that I'm wanting to call in, if this is all part of the process, like, and this is all aligning and unfolding, like, how do I move through the fear? And so I started looking around like the maps location, and I could see that within like the next kind of like little pin area that I could see to where we were living, there's like a little permaculture farm. And so I looked up the name of that permaculture farm, and I can see that the guy that runs it like has like a permaculture like podcast, and he specifically speaks a lot about community living and permaculture. And these are all things that there's a part of me that deeply desires to be more connected to my food source, to have community and connection, to support, and to a village to live amongst. But it's foreign to me. I don't know any of that stuff, and like, how would I go about learning it? And the beauty is, if I trust and surrender and like, and allow and move through the fears, that okay, now we're going to be positioned right next to like a permaculture person, and so I could potentially reach out to them and just be like, hey, we're going to be your new neighbors. And like, so the I guess it just confirms, it's like the proof that like my big vision is unfolding, even when it doesn't feel like it is unfolding, even when everything feels like it's going the absolute opposite way, like it did when I like had this intention of moving to Costa Rica. Like, it all ended up happening. And so like that, yeah, I guess like, yeah, just going with the storytelling of like trusting and surrendering. And there's a whole lot of stuff that is happening in the, what did Janet used to call it? Like the unseen operating forces or something, like the invisible forces. What did she call it? I always loved what she called it. But there's a lot of magic and amazing stuff that's happening. And how do we tap into that more? And how do we allow ourselves to get to the place where we're seeing the serendipity and the synchronicities, and then moving through with the tools to support our physical body? But yeah, I mean, that's, I think, both what we're both striving for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love all of that. And also just re-emphasizing that opportunity and all of that fear to hold that space for the inner child that is voicing that fear, and holding the space and talking to yourself and to her in that like supportive way, right? I feel that that's what you're feeling, and I'm here, and we'll get through this together. And then, yeah, and you looking for, instead of sitting in that space of only the fear, you took steps to map out, okay, this is the big picture, this is the big vision, and looking for ways to be excited or how you're going to be newly supported. And again, those are the action steps that keep that momentum moving forward, when old paradigm is for us to wallow in it and feel sorry for ourselves and to spiral deeper into the despair and play the victim mode, instead of rising up and being like, okay, this is a new opportunity, this is where I'm being guided, this is how life is unfolding, and what is the new magic opening up for me here. And even if we don't know all of it, it's just like, okay, this is one really cool thing that I'm seeing that I've been interested in and has been in my field for a certain amount of time. And that's really exciting and inspiring.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And there's a lot of boxes that get checked when we move out there. And I feel like I should share too, like when we were like looking for a place, like that can be really heavy and distracting from being like present in life, and that feeling of like, is there a right place for us, like where there's nothing available, and then withdrawing a little bit and maybe tapping in, like typing in like the little area. Like that's how I found it, is we have a piece of land in one little area, and I typed that in, and this is about 15 minutes past that, so it's actually within proximity of our property. So when we start building, it'd be beneficial to be that close. So there were a lot of things. And like a couple weeks ago, we were sitting and I was trying to fully integrate into our family, like these family jam sessions of just my daughter playing guitar and us like making up like silly songs or songs. And like we made up a song about a house that we were going to try to find that would have like all the things that we needed. And this one has a lot of the things that we needed. And so like, yeah, like how do we just stay in the trust, the co-creation, the power of like our intentions, the power of like speaking our intentions or writing. I remember there was this lady named Freya, and she hosted a little free call about how she would write poems and poetry as if things had already happened. And that's how she had like, quote unquote, manifested her partner, her husband. And so like, and I know that we talk about melodic mantras sometimes, which is like the singing of intentions or singing of affirmations, and the power that song and words and hums and musics and nervous system, and really embodying the feeling of like what we want. And yeah, it's just so fun to play because these are all so foreign to us. We weren't raised this way. I think at the very least it was like pray for what you want, and it might work out for you, like. And what if there's more to it? Like what if all these people that are saying all these things might have like, maybe there's some truth to it. And so going about playing in that energy and then seeing like, oh, that did work. And then teaching our kids, like my daughter was like, oh, do you remember that song you sang? Or that, like they're remembering and they're having the new, like this new way of creating and living, woven and embodied. Like they're literally not going to need to be deprogrammed from not living connected to source and to ourselves. Like they're actually, I guess that's like, what is the benefit of like tapping into our vitality and our vibrancy and our radiance, our like our thriving. And it's like, it's generational. Like it's literally being woven into the future based on every choice that we make in this like very present now moment.
I had, as you know, and as everybody's going to keep finding out, we speak through song, and we and as you were talking with that last story, which I always love everything you share, but I had that Lady Gaga song pop in my head about baby, I was born this way, and
Right.
so what we're born into, and just through, how you're choosing to raise your family and how I am and how all of our listeners are choosing to raise
Yeah.
their families, we're stepping away of what we were born into, or, born this way. And we're making really conscious and deliberate decisions and actions to shift, to essentially birth ourselves again, and support our children and the next generation into living in a different way. And it's just, again, I come back to the astrology and how we're all shifting to living in a new way that's more empowered and more lit up and more conscious. And it's, yeah, really exciting.
I know now I have the song Born to Be Wild in my head. I'll, I'll be moving myself to that at some point. But yeah, I mean, really, like we've been so far from removed from like our original blueprint and our original coding of like connected to source, connected to creation, connected to the earth, connected to this like hyper like sensory experience of being alive on this planet that animals and other creatures experience. Like I always get back to like, if we literally have like octopuses that like can change colors based on like their environment and what they detect, if we can have like deers know when it's time to like go find a source of salt, like if there's a seed of apple that contains every bit of wisdom that is ever needed to just continue fruiting and harvesting more apples, like how are we as humans not accessing that level of like intuition or like oh gosh, like there's another word, it's not intuition, but yeah, just instinctual, like we are so far removed from that. And so I think for myself and for my family and my children, like I just want to keep finding my way back to that space as much as possible, especially dabbling in like, my eyes have been open that there is a wide range of mystical and magical talents and gifts that people have. And yeah, like what is really possible as humans, what is our human potential?
No, I love that. I love that. And I to kind of work our way towards wrapping up, I was trying to bring up the song "You Don't Always Get What You Want, You Get What You Need,"
Yeah.
but my daughter currently has my Spotify hijacked with her music. So I tried to steal it and she stole it back. So I'm out of luck.
Oh, yeah. No, if I were to play it, I would probably, you would have the YouTube like little style, but we are going to be integrating this. We've talked about it, like our truest selves usually only get experienced by the people we're willing to like let into our little safe bubble. Like, are these people, if they, and I think that they don't even see our truest versions of ourselves, like there's still an expression of us. There is a version of us that doesn't feel safe, is really worried that its appearance and its expression would result in us not belonging. And it shows up in us, like in our, how visible we are, how vulnerable we are, who we let into our world. Like I think you and I are experiencing that on the next level as business partners and sisterhood and friendship. And it's really beautiful to find more and more people that we can not worry about not belonging with, where we just feel safe to be ourselves. And that seems so like cliche. And then when you look out into the inner world, it looks like a lot of people are really safe to like be themselves. But really what I'm seeing is more like people feel really safe, like doing what's status quo or what is being like normalized. And I don't see all that much authenticity. And so we're working on weaving in all of our parts, the silly, the fun, knowing that motherhood and business can get really serious sometimes. Like we want to do motherhood. I want to do motherhood. I want to do business. I want to do partnership. I want to do friendship. I want to do community. I want to do it all like as my whole connected, like fully expressed self. Silly times to be serious, funny, dancing, wild.
I agree. And I know we try to not put things on each other, but we're usually in the same place to throw out
Yeah.
the
Yeah, exactly. I know. I talk and wheeze a lot. It's a collective thing. It's definitely not just us as individuals here. I know we have our own iterations and experiences of it and versions of it, but so many of us are all experiencing such similar journeys. And that's why it's so nice to be able to find others that are like walking a similar path, that have said like this and this are like my priorities, what I'm focused on, this is where my North Star is guiding me. And to find other people in their own unique expression of themselves, but like committed to that similar path is just, oh, it's just so safe and like nice to be able to relax into.
Definitely. And yeah, just wrapping up with holding the vision of us getting back to the space of the wisdom within the apple seed, right? So that we can all return to everything that we already have inside of us that allows us to grow into this beautiful, incredible tree that continues to fruit year after year after year. Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, trees and things like that, we are putting the final touches on the landing page for our event. It's going to be called Vitality, and it is going to be virtual, and it will be available for replays if you're not able to attend live. But we have it on the calendar. By us making this official, we are going to say it is happening the week of winter solstice. It's going to be on the 18th. And we're hoping that what we're going to be providing with you will allow you to step further and to be more prepared and more resourced to cultivate your like tree of wellness. And yeah, as the time, like with winter solstice, like this isn't something to consume or chase. Like this is really a space for you to come and just like receive and rest and just like, yeah, get present with where you are within this cycle of your growth and within your evolution, with no judgment, no shame, just like I won't be able to know where I'm headed if I don't know where I am right now. So
Yeah, it's a space of reflection. And something that I witnessed living up here in the north is even though it's the middle of winter, everything looks like it's dead or sleeping. You know, I can walk through and I already see all of the bushes that have the tiniest little buds on them, which tells me that in winter the whole goal is for us to go inwards. It doesn't mean for us to rest and not do anything. It's that we rest and we get quiet and we get still and we cultivate that presence and we go in and we clean up the inside so that when spring comes around again, we're fully ready to come out and bloom from a really clean, clear source.
yeah, like I think I have this like story or narrative that things are like dying in the winter, but they're not really dying. They're in preparation to continue thriving. This is just like the pause, right? And so yeah, so much wisdom from nature to be gleaned. Like yeah, when all else feels chaotic and crazy and you don't know what to trust, like look to nature. She's the source of so much wisdom. And yeah, I love that reminder. And as someone who is not experiencing the winter weather at all, so no. Yeah, so good. We forgot to light a candle in the beginning, but
I
maybe
know,
we
but we were already off and running. I thought about just lighting it while you were talking, but I decided we'd roll with it today.
today, yeah, with the flexible boundaries.
Yeah.
Yes, it was no doubt a sacred, amazing container. And yeah, we're practicing. This is a practice for us too, to step into just sharing wisdom, sharing our experiencing. I think we talked earlier that like these are healing conversations, both virtually, just being in connection, hearing others' voices, hearing others' stories. And so that's what our goal is, candle or not, is for these healing conversations to land and to contribute to your thriving.
Yes. And with that, we'll just send all of you so much love, and we hope to hear from you in the comments, and we hope to see you at Vitality in just a couple of weeks.
Yes, and click like and subscribe if you want more content like this. And if there's anything that, that is relevant to this conversation, drop it in the comments and let the conversation keep unfurling.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye.